Presenting the Brick House Podcast. The Brick House. Here comes the boom.
All right, guys. Welcome back to the Brick House Podcast. My name is Matthew Brick, and welcome back. I'm really excited for you guys to listen in today's episode. Today I'm talking with a friend, a good guy. We've been planning to do this. Like I've asked him, he's always said yes, but we just haven't gotten around to it. But we're doing it today, which I'm really glad. Dawson Frye, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying life.
enjoying life. Man, like, okay, you just finished high school. You went on a discovery trip. Like, how things been? I mean, I'd love to ask what we can maybe get started in like, well, yeah, so how was your discovery trip? I'd like, because that's one of the big reasons why I want to hear from. And then like obviously everything else, but anything in between, like, is there anything that you want to start off with?
My discovery trip was definitely very good. I really enjoyed it.
He went to India.
Yeah, I did go to India. It was all the way across the world.
How long
Um,
was it?
How long was it?
Yeah, like the
Well,
whole,
we spent 4 days flying there, like there and back. A
okay.
4-day round trip. And then we spent 12 days in India. So 16-day trip total. It was a lot of fun, and I got to serve a lot of kids, teach them some stuff. They didn't know what like null operations were
Mm-hmm.
in like math when you time something by zero. So that's what I did. I taught the third graders that, and then we obviously taught them about Jesus and God and had fun with them, played with them, enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's basically the rundown.
Yeah, rundown. And I don't know, well, because I had interviewed someone previously. Was Erica one of the leads?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had her on the podcast. She had said something about like you would go and see like them do live sacrifice or something like that.
Yeah,
Or something. Yeah.
we went to the Kali temple where they will sacrifice a goat for the goddess Kali.
Mm-hmm.
And the goddess Kali loves blood, and how it goes is I forgot exactly who caught her, but they wanted to see whether or not like she was drinking blood or not. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the night they caught her and she had her tongue out and it was red. And so that's her image, is her red tongue out, because she likes drinking blood. And if she doesn't have blood, then she goes into a craze. She's a goddess of destruction. And so whenever she doesn't get that, I guess, hit,
Yeah.
she goes crazy and then needs to destroy and goes into a craze.
Mm.
And so they sacrifice blood and a goat offering to her in order to, I guess, quell her destruction and her anger against them,
Mm-hmm.
protect their families.
What were maybe some of the biggest like things that stood out to you, maybe lessons or takeaways that you had from the trip? I don't know.
I feel like there were a couple. The first one is definitely like what you need compared to like what you want. The houses that we went to, the slum houses, there's probably 2 houses that could fit here, and each one would house like 5 people.
Like the
In
size of this room, yeah.
there'd be 2 slum houses in this room.
Wow.
So this would house 10 people. And then just being able to like be there for the kids, because we're considered the top of the caste system
Mm-hmm.
in their reincarnation cycle, or one of the tops.
What, Americans or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because and so just our presence being there is seen as weird.
Yeah.
Especially us walking around that temple with crosses on our necks, and just, you know, people were staring at us. The priests didn't like it. Um, and it just allows you to kind of see exactly, almost, not entirely, what life was like back when Jesus was walking the streets, and what he saw when he was flipping the tables, and how he was preaching in the temple, because they did sacrifices, obviously. The
Mm.
Jews did, to pay for their sins, cover their sins. So that was extremely impactful, just seeing what you need in life compared to like what you want. Um, and then after we went to the slum home, we went to this fancy dinner on purpose to kind of contrast the disparity between wealth in India. And it was, I couldn't eat anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat anything there. It just felt tasteless.
Okay.
Um, and the food was terrible. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I took a bite of something and I was like, this isn't good.
What
I,
was the food like that out there?
it was like a buffet at this hotel. It had everything. It had pizza, sushi, steak.
Oh.
It literally was like the nicest place. But it tasted terrible. I took a bite of something and I was like, this is not good. Literally tasteless. And it kind of showed the disparity between the luxury and suffering. And what I wrote down um, in my journal when I was trying to comprehend what was going on, why I felt this way, and it was like we were lot, we as humans, I guess, in this world, we're not meant to live in comfort, but we were meant to get the chance to live, to get the chance to choose. Um, and we were at first meant to live in peace and comfort, but we kind of broke down our own car, so to speak, on our journey. So now we have to go through it without AC. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was really hot in India, like
Yeah.
110.
110?
Yeah,
That's
your shirt would just be soaked 24/7.
24. Wow.
It was terrible. Since it was so humid, it wouldn't evaporate since we were in Kolkata.
What was the language like how like because in on my trip like we had a Spanish teacher go with us. We like someone actually like, one of the students spoke Spanish, but they speak like I don't even know what they speak in India and like how do you work around that?
A lot, like around half the amount of people spoke a little bit of English just because that's what's taught in most schools. But for the people who didn't go to school, they just kind of know one or two words. They watch American shows. I was
Mm-hmm.
called John Cena.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would just point at me. Um, and how it worked, we had 6 Indians with us
Mm-hmm.
who were part of Momentum Global,
Oh, okay.
which is uh, the organization we were working with. So they were always with us to translate and to help if ever needed. Um, so that's how the language. They speak Bengali, Hindi. There's a bunch of different dialects. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so this is a cool fact that I learned about Dawson, and you can maybe talk about it, but you can speak Mandarin, right?
Yeah,
For
I can speak pretty well.
pretty well. Like that is such a cool fact to me. And like that even has dialects and like tones. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Like you can say the same thing, but like there's different tones. That's yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of intriguing parts about Mandarin, and yeah, it's not easy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when I was in China, I was trying to speak to these people, but they didn't understand me because I wasn't saying the pinyin right. Because like you can either be sh, or sh, and
Oh,
like the
wow.
different way you can say it changes the meaning. So when I was trying to speak to them, I sounded stupid, and
Well, yeah.
they were trying their hardest. Um, but yeah, it's crazy. And then they speak Cantonese as well, which I know zero about. And then there's traditional and simplified, which I know simplified because that's what mainland China speaks. It's
And then I know they like, well, it's one thing like being able to speak Chinese, but then to actually like write and read Chinese is completely different, I heard.
yeah, I can't write it like at all. I can read it
Well,
a little bit better.
that's still crazy.
Um, yeah, especially with like you have to put the strokes in a specific way, and I can't do this. I don't remember. I know
Yeah.
how to say I and is, and yeah, that's all I know how to write and want.
Hey,
Those
that's
are
all
the
right.
3 things I know how
Okay.
to write.
Yeah, I mean, unless you really had a need for it or you were over in China and you had to start writing something, but
Yeah. And then if you're writing on computer, you could just write SHI for sh, and then it'll like
Pop
autocorrect
up.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like all this traveling, because you had told me you had done previous discovery trips and you went on one to India, and I think you maybe had shared something with me, but like, are you doing something with YWAM,
I
or you were?
I want to.
You want to?
Yeah. Doesn't necessarily have to be
Through
through an organization
organization.
or through YWAM, but I was honestly thinking of going back to Momentum Global, back to India.
Yeah,
Um, after that experience I had with them, because I
sure.
think they're a very honest and very truthful. They take care of you and they're with you. They don't spend in excess or do anything. Like the house leader of the organization has, the house he has was gifted to him. So he like gives it all back.
Mm,
And so having the leader of an organization who actually has a heart for God, um, I feel like it's hard to find in charities and stuff like that.
probably, yeah.
And just being able to meet them, and it's a small place. Obviously, Erica is going to be one of the board members, so it ain't that
Oh,
big.
okay, okay. Well, that's still pretty cool.
To have a athletics coach in your board directors is board of directors. Yeah.
Well, it's really cool because like you're not just one thing. Like God uses you, and you can be multiple things. Like
Mhm.
that's what's cool. But yeah, like this, like you've seen all this traveling, you've seen many perspectives, you've been to multiple places. Like, yeah, maybe tell us like like how that has shaped your desire to want to go back to India or any one of these places that you would want to go. Is it for evangelism? Like maybe, yeah, what is the desire and like what would you want to do? Maybe.
I feel like evangelism is necessary, but I feel like serving the person first is
Hmm.
also more important, I should say. Being there, obviously, like when we went to the Mother Teresa home for the sick and dying, being there is very important and serving them. But also at the same time, if they're in too much pain or too much, like, if they're suffering, if they don't have a house, if they don't have food, pretty difficult to be like without giving them like the opportunity to even make a choice. They're too focused on their physical needs, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, sometimes physical pain can be a distraction. I mean, not like that isn't like a bad thing. Like, cause like sometimes, like, yeah, pain, like that, it's normal to feel pain. Like, it's not like, oh, you should get mad at yourself for feeling pain, but yeah, sometimes it, like, that can be more at the forefront of your mind than anything else, especially what does this Westerner have to say or something, maybe.
yeah, why do I believe what I believe?
Mm,
I feel like why I want to I want them to see God through me and not hear God. Well, not hear about God through me,
yeah.
you know? I'd rather be a mirror than be like just babble or just,
Yeah.
mindless chatter towards them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is something like even if you weren't to be going and traveling to these places, because not everyone's calling is to go out and be of service maybe in another country, but I think even just for like Christians here in America or like maybe like just, people living their day-to-day life, like what would be the difference to be different from just talking and then rather like actually living and like going in fellowship, and if you see someone like who is struggling or someone who's going through hardship, like actually it might take a few days, it might take a week, maybe a year, but to actually like live with them, like in a way,
Mhm.
like to walk through whatever they're walking through together with them. um which someone like actually this past weekend gave me like I kind of not, I don't see it as a sign, but I see it as like, all right, Matthew, maybe this is an opportunity. Yeah, that's a good word, the opportunity. They're like, Matthew, you should really go. There's this person that really might like like, because I'm like you, like for instance, here for the people that are listening in, you, Dawson, have been like just even a year ago, there was a short period of time where he came and like was in our like youth group circle, but then like he's older than me, so obviously he moved up. But like there was a time where he was just with us, and Dawson, like he poured into he like I hold to a lot of what you have previously said, and I still hold on to a lot of what you've said. I would say you definitely were one of the first people to like actually like walk or like at least impact me and like actually like speak truth into me versus like or like amongst struggling and
Mhm.
but like yeah. So I've like which was actually cool because this past weekend someone was like, Matthew, you might be a person of like what you've been to me maybe to someone else. So I'm looking like yeah, I wonder if I'm gonna do I want to do it, but it's something definitely I want to step into. Yeah, no, for people that are listening or watching, like Dawson, one thing I hold on that you said, um, like you know, when you fall into temptation or you fall into something, like don't get mad at yourself for it because you
Mhm.
are already forgiven. Like it's one thing holding yourself accountable, but like you said something about how like God already forgives you, and like it's not you're not doing any better by shaming yourself for it. And like that's something that I just like I remember you. Maybe I didn't say it word to word, but that's something I remember you teaching me and
Yeah.
whatnot.
When I was reading A Pilgrim's Progress, the English Revised Version, and it was talking about conviction for a Christian and how it plays into part. And it was saying conviction isn't something that you should be afraid of or you should hate. Um, and you should take it with joy and understand because it shows you exactly like it humbles you in a way compared to God because you aren't God.
Mm.
You aren't going to be perfect and you never will be in this life. Um, and it's a road towards that sanctification, but it's understanding what the Apostle Paul says in that our best efforts are like a dirty rag, is the English translation.
Yeah.
Um, our best efforts is like a dirty rag, but obviously back where he wrote it in Greek, when he said dirty rag, it's literally what they use to like wipe shit off the floor.
Yeah.
Um, so our best efforts to God is like a dirty rag.
A
um,
poopy rag.
yeah, a poopy rag is what our best efforts are. And understanding his wonderful grace in that. And you shouldn't be ashamed, but should be empowered by your convictions because it shows you exactly where you want to be and it shows you your heart. Um, it shows you how you want to change and how you will. It gives you a roadmap. It's Jesus next to you, showing you the way. It's the Holy Spirit inside you, giving you the strength to take the next step. Um, and I don't want people to go out in the world and beat themselves up or say there's no point. In Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis talks about how every choice and decision we make ultimately changes the inward structure of our soul, um, which, because our soul is eternal, when extrapolated over eternity, will determine like what we are and how we look. But we still need God's grace, obviously, because if you have a debt to a shop owner, and just because you stop buying more stuff, it doesn't change the fact that you're in debt. But sorry, extrapolated over eternity will decide kind of like your hell or heaven. It's
Mm.
kind of what C.S. Lewis said. Because if you imagine your soul as, and every decision you make, say in hate, makes you more hateful, or in love makes you more loving. And if you were to bring that over eternity, when every time you lie, you become more of a liar, and every time, and you start believing it, and eventually, when you see God, you're going to see hate. And because that's how distorted you will be, because it'll be over eternity. And if love, you'll see love because it'll be over eternity and you'll be closer to God because of it. And so the decisions we make do matter. And it does matter. It's why Paul says you shouldn't just keep on sitting, because the choices you make do matter and they do change who you fundamentally are. But God's grace is always going to be there and willing to accept your downfalls. C.S. Lewis continues with saying, God doesn't want anything less than perfection. That's kind of what he wants out of us in the end. He wants us to be like Jesus. In the end, he wants to give us new bodies and sanctify us. And I feel like that's a greater way to think of it than how we do now, or how some people do now, where it's like live your truth, or like I gave God this one sin, but God wants all of you.
Yeah.
Like after you give up one addiction, he wants to keep helping you. And he wants to keep leading you. He doesn't just want a part of you, he wants all of you.
Yeah. There's this verse, that's why I grabbed my phone. Let me find it. It's Matthew 11, 28 through 30. This is Jesus speaking. I'm just looking it up right here. Matthew 11, 28 to 30. This is the NIV version, but this is like something I just read last night, and I don't know, I think it attests to like just like, well, like God's goodness and God's like, we are gonna be this dirt. All we're gonna ever amount to, like when it comes to perfection, is a dirty, poopy rag. But that's okay. Jesus says in verse 28, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Like that one, like that verse right there, kind of just paints a picture or like a portrait in my mind of just like open arms to you type deal. I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I think like on the road of like following Christ and like trying our best to like do what Jesus says, like, and like you said, like you want to be like a mirror of Christ, and like especially being an arrow towards Christ. Like, oh, when people see Dawson or see you, they'll know, like, especially the people that have known you for a very long time, they'd like know like this Dawson who has overcome struggles. Like, why is he like he is? And like they'll be able to see like the renewal of you, and like it'll all be pointed to Christ. But I just see it as like this thing of like, because a lot of times like I'll like, oh, I'm not getting this right, and like you said, like don't fall in this trap of like shame and upsetness at yourself, but rather like Jesus's yoke and his burden is light. He is gentle and welcomes you in gentle arm, like gentleness. And but yeah, that's a verse that I read, and I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. You have anything else to say to that, or
I'm trying to think.
We can always come back to it.
Because I'm trying to remember, since I read Mere Christianity and Pilgrim's Progress recently, and C.S. Lewis was talking about that verse. And I was trying to figure out how he used this metaphor of a procrastinator and not, as Jesus' burden is still, it's easier than the world's, but it doesn't mean it's like, at the same time, he says his burden is easy and his yoke is light. But on the other hand, he said the door is narrow and the path is thin, that people are going to hate you and persecute you. And he was attributing it to like a procrastinator and not, but I can't remember exactly how he put the two together.
I mean, it sounds pretty like legit. Like when it comes to the struggle, and like I picture it as like you'll have a light, the like a light post out in the ocean, or like when Jesus is walking on water and picks up Peter from from drowning. Like you'll always have this banner, you'll always have this like light to look for, but it doesn't mean that the walk is going to be easy. It just means that you have like a safe haven in a way, so that like your walk can become easier. But yeah, something like that. Like there, I think you're making like a, I don't know. But yeah, God's goodness is for you and he'll be there for you, but it isn't going to be easy. That's what I'm kind of picking up on here, but I don't know. Well, if we can pick, I can go into the next question too. So,
Sure.
sure. All right. Well, what is that good? What is the next question, Matthew? Okay, I gotta think. Sure, let's go into this. I mean, man, it's summertime. Um, like, yeah, what? And maybe this goes back to kind of where you like to like previous question, but like I had asked you about like serving, and like you've shared that you've want to like go and do service, but like what are some of the next steps for you? Like right now it's summertime. What are you doing?
Currently, I'm gonna start working a full-time job.
Mm,
Um, I'm gonna be saving up and investing money,
yeah.
and out of that, I want to go back and obviously serve. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Just
Yeah.
or going to do.
What's this
Starts next week.
what are you planning on doing this full, like what is the full-time job?
It's gonna be in kind of like an assistant or an internship.
Oh, sweet. Any you want to go any deeper in that or not?
I mean,
It's not really.
it's not that it's not that, I guess, flashy or deep.
Okay, okay. Well, it doesn't have to be deep on this podcast, nothing. Just I mean, we hadn't previously talked or seen each other in like months. I haven't probably seen him since May or a little bit before May. But yeah, I guess, do you have any questions for me? I love switching it around a little bit.
Any questions for you?
Yeah,
Um,
and it could be simple, whatever.
it can be simple. Okay. Hmm. I'll start simple. Are you gonna do wrestling?
I am gonna be doing wrestling. I have not been practicing, but and because I'll be going to my junior year. And I know this might sound like, as an athlete, not like the smartest way of going into things. Like, sure, this next season I want to do good, but like I don't personally think what I want to bring and contribute to the team is gonna be very different than maybe some of the people that are physically inclined. Like what I'm realizing, and this is something that I really am holding on right now. Like I love wrestling as a sport and as a thing, like because I personally think these past 2 years it's really grown me. Um, but like something that like, and what I want to get out of this next season, and I'll make it really short, but I just want to bring a theme of like praising God when I win and when I lose. I don't know if I'll even be on varsity this next year. I haven't been really working, but like I just want to bring a theme and like yeah, just a new morale to the team. So that's what I'm feeling like kind of called to bring, or like something I want to do. But when it comes to actually like skills wise and all that, I don't know yet. I don't know what that's gonna entail for me. Are you doing any jiu-jitsu or any of that? I mean, I know you're working out all the time when you can.
Um, I'm hoping to. I found this gym through a friend, this jujitsu gym, and I'm gonna hopefully start going there relatively soon.
Nice.
But I'm gonna be every other week. I'm gonna be in Vegas, so I feel I do want to do it, but at the same time, half the time is kind of gonna be a waste.
Mm,
So
yeah. Well, this is nothing like, this is not something you like. You can do always start this later in your life. Like
yeah,
it's not something you have to get down to right now.
and I love fighting.
Yeah.
think it's a great just way to express yourself and really kind of figure out who you are. Um, Push through different blocks and barriers and work through different stressors, figure
Mm-hmm.
out how to deal with stress in a very direct way that you can't in other periods of your life. It kind of stresses your body and your mental to the point where you have to face things now. You can't put it off. You can't wait until something pops up in your life. Anything that you're dealing with is like you
Right
have to
there.
go through now because
I,
that's what you're thinking
I
about.
never
If
thought of
you're
it
if
like
you're losing, if you're
that.
losing, that's all you're thinking about in that moment. You're like, ugh,
What am I doing? Yeah.
what am I doing?
I've had a lot of those thoughts before,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So I definitely do love it. And I definitely think it is good for you.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Um, Anything else asking me?
Anything else? Hmm. What's your goal with this podcast?
What is,
Not this podcast in particular, but
yeah.
like the Brick House podcast in general.
I wanted to, well, yeah, so I'm doing this podcast, but like the whole reason for Brick House podcast and what I want to just stem out of this, is really like a community. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna do this. Like as long as God keeps telling me, or at least until hear Him say no. Like
Yeah.
that's really the thing. I'm not like getting amount or like an amount like a grave amount of like listeners. Not a lot of people are listening to what I have to say. Um, but I have realized like at least from what I've heard, people like it is at least somewhat motivational to some people. Um, and like my biggest goals is just if anyone can learn just like to follow Jesus like and why I say that is just because I know what this past year has been probably the biggest transformative year of my life, because I have been brought out of just um, hardship and struggle, and like I can really think like I think my life is at least at this point where now like yeah, I'm now gonna struggle and I'm gonna still go through life like any other day, but I have a new weapon, like a new weapon amongst me. I have the armor of God. I really do believe in this guy named Jesus. I really believe that he was the son of God, which ever before I never like, I heard stories. Like I grew up going to church every so often, but I didn't really believe in it because I didn't think I was really one worthy of it. And I didn't believe that like how could yeah like typically this is how I think people it's hard to come like once you start seeing God's goodness, but and even like the people Jesus's disciples time and time again, the people who saw like Jesus doing miracles and miracles time after time again, they still and like they were probably the closest that you would ever be to Jesus in some ways because they actually were physically there with him. They still doubted and didn't believe at times. But like, yeah, I think the hardest thing for my mind to get wrapped around was why are still bad things happening if there's this just and good God. But we could go into that. But I've realized that like God permit like everything He allows that is considered bad, it's all permitted for good, and it also goes back to like what is good. But yeah, main objective here is like I just want to make connections with people. Like I can't tell you how many people like never in my life would I have thought that I would just start inviting people and talking with them and like just have a conversation with them like that was somewhat meaningful. And like now I'm like at least like one thing that I learned from my discovery trip is like you need meaningful connections. And like this podcast, like even if it's just once a week or this or that, I'm actually setting aside time to like talk to people, at least trying to be genuine. So that might have been a long spiel, but yeah, connections, Jesus, having fun, obviously. Like if I wish that like you guys knew that like I would tell you that I have a plan, but I have no plan for this. Like this is like if someone that was like legit or like that's also just not how my brain works, I don't think. But I'm not very organized with this at all. It's a day by day or a week by week basis. So if you ever have tips, but yeah, very unorganized. whatnot. I guess there's only a few more questions I have for you, and then like we could go in the last segment. Unless you have anything for me. But I mean, I just wanted like people to know, like, because they hear you testifying to God's goodness, like, and I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but I'd love to just hear a little bit of like your testimony or your story or like anything that you can testify God's goodness or like just be real. Maybe you right now are going through a season that isn't very, I don't know. I'd love to just, I want people before we close it all out to like say this Dawson guy, like he speaks about God. Why is that? The way, like, why do you speak so highly of God, or like what is that reasoning behind it? So you can go any, if you're willing, any avenue that you want to go down.
Um, I feel like I grew up very strong in my faith. Um, and I grew up in Nevada, and we went to the Crossing Church, and I loved it as a kid. We moved to Colorado when I was about 7 or 8. And we stopped going to church, and I stopped hearing about God. And so slowly, with school as well, because I was in public school, obviously, you just kind of start to forget and learn new things, um, learn new ways of why things work. Um, and I didn't get to see my parents since they were always working. I'd see them once a week. So I didn't have much of a guiding force in my life. Then we moved down to around Highlands Ranch, and I went to another school, and I started getting into a lot of bad habits to kind
Mm.
of heal the disorder that started to happen. Um, I got really upset with myself and really confused with what I was. Um, there wasn't, I didn't understand what was happening, and I just wanted something to explain it. I couldn't explain why or understand why my family decided to split up, but I still had different feelings about it, and I needed different ways to express it. And I got into a lot of bad habits, um, a lot of things that haunt me to this day
Yeah.
that I wish I wouldn't have. And I feel like a lot of that is um, generational curses, is how I saw it, or I see it now, is, or whatever you want to call it, genetic inclinations towards things. But these routes that I was taking to, I guess, ease what I was going through didn't really work. Um, I got new siblings, twins, and that was interesting. But my mom, in the process, had to go through unanesthetized, no painkiller C-section.
Oh, wow.
So she needed to be cut open without any anesthetics, which
Wow. Yeah, that just sounds.
messed her up a little bit. Um, so I had a shell of a mom for a while. I clung to my grandma, and yeah, she had pretty bad PTSD from that moment, which I don't blame her for. And out of that, when that started to happen, I started kind of looking at myself and realizing the pain I was in. I started having unhealthy relationships with people, with women, and that didn't help me at all. But I started trying to change in order to, like, I guess, have a more stable life. And I started just looking down theology, trying to figure out how to be happy in who I was, which I really like Stoicism, but it was just a shell of like what it was. I read Marcus Aurelius Meditations, and I was just trying to live by that. But obviously, you can't live perfectly as a human, and you never will have the strength to fully change. And I never had the strength to fully break any addictions or anything that was causing me issue or pain. And during that time, I felt God's goodness and God's grace, which allowed me to, I guess, realize the ocean that was around me. Um, C.S. Lewis describes theology as an ocean, and a lot of people search for the splashes and what, like, getting wet with like the ocean that is God.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to truly, he used the analogy of going to America. Like, you can go in the ocean all you want, or you could search to kind of like get like within God's presence. But in order to get to, or in order to change, in order to go somewhere else, you kind of need to start sailing the ocean. That doesn't mean you're always gonna like be wet. That doesn't mean you're always gonna feel God's presence, even though He's all around you, even though you're sailing towards a new destiny, a new land. Um, but yeah, and when I was following God, I just, He gave me the strength to stop a lot of what I was doing, and He gave me the courage to stop a lot of bad relationships and bad habits. And He was there when no one else was. He made me feel loved. Um, and I know a lot of people will just say it's a construct you make up in your mind. And they'll cite some, uh, what is that called? Why am I blanking on the name? What's the secret intelligence agency of the U.S.?
CIA or
CIA.
conspiracy.
The CIA documents saying how there is a heaven because of the construct made up by the mind and the above. Whatever. It's not that. I can promise you. But yeah, He helped me through a lot of my issues and is still helping me through a lot of them. He's given me grace and allowed me to forgive myself for a lot of the things I've done and a lot of the issues I've caused. Um, and He's brought my family together.
Wow.
I feel like the only way you can explain, like, why do you believe in something is, does it work? Like, do you, like, the only real way to know if something is real, I guess, is to try it out or to see if it works. And a lot of people want an equation or definitive proof, um, which doesn't apply to something outside of the universe, outside of equations. You can't explain why you want something that isn't there, but you can only search for it. And I feel like, I don't know, I can't explain it. My conviction to follow Jesus and to follow Christianity is not only held by my personal belief and its validity in the Bible, but also in my personal experiences with how He's changed and helped me, and how I felt Him in different circumstances. Which I swear is not the construct of the mind. The CIA says it.
No.
Um, so that's
Yeah.
kind of why.
Dude, I mean, yeah. I loved everything you said. Thank you for sharing. Um, I think I could go a little, like, I could say what I want to say after that, but I don't think I should say anything. Because, like, yeah. That was really good. Really good. Um, well, guys, that's Dawson for you, for sure. Um, is there anything else that you'd want to say?
Anything else?
Anything else?
No.
No, okay, last segment. Well, I want to go into this right before I do that. Like, Dawson, like when I mean like thank you for doing this, like I really do believe, listeners, like everyone, like you'll do so much good for like, and I proclaim this too. I really believe that, I think you like, and that's why I said like earlier, like you were one of the first people to ever really pour into me as a friend, and like just even like you're one of the reasons why I have my faith where it is right now, because not many people will like actually proclaim what you're saying, and let alone like actually walk with it. And so I thank you. And Dawson, I just I don't know, we might stay in like, we don't stay in contact that much, but like I really do believe that wherever you'll be doing great things. I really believe God will use you, and I think you whatever you're doing, wherever you're meant to be, like you're gonna bring a wave, like a hurricane force of um, love from God, and people will be able to see that.
Thank you.
So, last thing, is there anything that you could like, if you were like last thing, from the heart? You've already been so much from the heart in this episode, but if there's any last message that you want to say to the people listening or watching, what would that have to be? But if nothing, you know?
Hmm. I would definitely just invite people to seek, to knock, and the door will be opened, to be hungry for wisdom and knowledge, to never stop looking and searching for it. Because I feel like there's so much out there, and there's so many different paths you can take in life, but um, searching for the one truth, I feel like is one of the best things you can do. Um, and being solid in that. Um, I would recommend you just searching. Um, I'd recommend Pilgrim's Progress, Mere Christianity. Um, Anything by C.S. Lewis is great, but just for you to get in the Word and just to read, to really figure out what you are believing, um, and have conviction towards it, because you can say you believe in Jesus, and you can understand. And obviously, going to a Christian school, we've been taught the rundown of basically the whole Bible. Um, but really just getting a deep understanding and just trying to get closer to God every single day. Because there's nothing else that's more important than becoming in deeper relations with God, because He will lead you to wherever you're going to go. He will show you your path, and He will give you the wisdom, He will give you the strength, and He will give you your knowledge. Um, and I just encourage and pray for everyone that they would run after God in that sort of way. Um, that they would mark out their steps, that they would take them with care. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
I love it. Run after God step by step, seek, be in fellowship, and yeah. Well, that concludes today's episode of the Brick House Podcast. Thank you, Dawson. Let's go. Guys, I love you guys. If you guys feel inclined, share it. Say some good positive words about it. Reach out to Dawson. I'll put his Instagram in or his phone number, whatever. We'll figure it out. Reach out to him. Love you guys. That was the Brick House Podcast.
Sweet. Thank you.
Dude.